mind over matter, where big minds meet brave hearts. Today's guest is a literary storm in a teenage soul. Meet Shanti Hershenson, a 16-year-old author who's not just writing stories, she's writing her future. While most teens are juggling school and social drama, Shanti is juggling plot twists, publishing deadlines, and literally fan bases. Let's dive into the mind of a Gen Z creative force who proves that passion has no limit. Welcome to the show, Shanti. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mhm. So, Shanti, most teens are trying to finish homework. You're finishing novels. What first pulled you into writing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have loved writing pretty much for as long as I can remember. I know that's a bit of a silly answer, but I have memories of being really, really, really young. 4, 5, 6 years old, and like sitting down and creating these little stories on paper. At the time I really could not handwrite things. So a lot of my early sort of creations were just pictures. But what ended up happening is as I grew older and that love for writing continued to develop, I, of course, started creating short stories and I started writing these little, on paper, I would like bind my little books together. And then when I reached the sixth grade, a friend and I decided to write a book together. And we wrote this little novella. It was about 30, 40, 50 pages. And I wanted to look for a printed copy because I was like, oh, that would be so awesome. And the way I figured out how to do this was Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. So when I was 12 years old, without even fully understanding it, I published my first book. And, but fast forward a couple months later, and that's where I say the story really begins. Like that was the prologue. And I was 12 years old. I was stuck in lockdown because of the global pandemic, and I decided that I wanted to write my first book. And what I mean by that is, of course, like I set out to write a novel all by myself. I had no idea what I was doing, and I ended up writing this super, super, super long book. And by that I mean the first draft was 800 pages and 250,000 words, and it was so long that I ended up deciding to split it into 3 books. And at the time, I started learning a whole lot more about the marketing process, about self publishing and traditional publishing. I started working with an editor, and all through that, I kept writing more and more. And that was really early on when I developed this process of writing one book and editing another. And since then, I've really never stopped.
That's amazing. And was there a moment you knew this isn't just a hobby, this is who I am?
That's a great question. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly when. I remember early on when I was writing that first book, Biomlock, I was like, yeah, this is just, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm really bored. I don't know if anything's going to come out of this. I just want to write this book. And there was a point, I believe, and I couldn't tell you quite when it was, so at some point over the summer between 6th and 7th grade, where I started really thinking, like, okay, this is serious. Like, I really, really care. I really want to improve. I started working with a writing coach who's also my editor. And I also really started to imagine, like, hey, this could be my life. I previously really wanted, when I was younger, I wanted to go into computer science. And there was this turning point where I was like, actually, I want to I want to write. I want to create stories. And realizing that this was something that I could imagine myself doing and really imagined myself working towards, not just saying I wanted to do it, but actually doing it. And yeah,
hmm And that kind of clarity so young is rare. And it shows in the confidence of your voice on the page.
thank you.
Mhm. And writing is one thing, but publishing at your age? How did you break into that world? And what were the biggest surprises?
Ooh, good question. So, what I recall is the way I learned a whole lot about it was just literally through sitting down. I would back then I had basically an infinite amount of time on my hands between the summer and also not being in school. just because of the fact that we were in lockdown. And I remember I would turn on a movie and then I would sit on my computer and I would just be Googling every last thing about publishing and marketing. There's Readsy, which is still the website I actually used to write my books. They have a blog, and on the blog they have a ton of marketing tips, from press to book signings to cover design to literally everything. And I ended up spending hours upon hours just researching just anything. It didn't matter if I actually needed it at the time, but getting that research in early on helped me build that foundation to be able to understand just how this whole process works. And in terms of surprises, I have a couple different things I could say in that regard. I think one thing that really did surprise me was having a readership and really seeing quite quickly how people would just discover the books randomly and start reading them, and maybe they'd leave a review, and all of that was quite alarming to me at 13, realizing that yeah, I published my work. And publishing also means that people are going to read it. And I mean, in a way, I should have expected it, but I was also very shocked. And it was very much this thing that was like overwhelming in the best way, but also overwhelming in the scariest way.
Mm-hmm. But it must have taken so much dedication and patience to figure all that out.
Oh, definitely. It wasn't it wasn't something that came easily. It was at first, I would be making mistakes. I remember the first time I ever uploaded my book to KDP, and I made like a major mistake in how I uploaded the file. And then because of that, I had to delay the book's release. But the more you do it, the more you publish, the more you market, the more you learn, and the more you interact with readers, just the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And did you face any doubts from adults in the industry? And how did you deal with that?
Hmm. I'm like trying to think of like specific stories, because definitely doubt from others it's a large part of the teen author experience, because you're so young and you're doing something that sometimes adults want to do and haven't. And there's definitely that sort of space for like doubt and sort of disbelief. I What I recall specifically was the first time I went viral on TikTok. There were a lot of comments basically being like, "No, you didn't. You're not writing these books. Your parents are writing them for you. I don't believe this. I don't believe that you can actually do this." And it was a very formative experience for me, being 14 and suddenly having um a handful of people basically saying that like my biggest achievement was a fraud. But what I learned is really to tune those out, because if they don't have any valuable criticism, then why should I listen? And I really had to learn to just like listen to all the people who have read the books, who know I wrote them, and who really believe in me. And then that's how it sort of um A, becomes a lot easier, and B, just sorry, there was a word I'm looking for that I forgot. But that's how in a way it almost turns into like from something that really doesn't feel that great to motivation, because there's this like, intrinsic need to prove them wrong.
But that's such a powerful example of trusting your craft, even when others haven't caught up yet.
Yeah.
And how do you stay creatively energized in a world filled with distractions, especially at your age?
Yeah, I really one thing I say this anytime anyone asks me is I really built this habit of writing every single day. For me, I write 1,000 words every single day. But what that also means is it's so built into my daily schedule that there's not much of a question about it. But also, I am a teenager and I am on my phone a lot. And really, I try to, if I find myself very distracted by the internet, by the world around me, I have taught myself just to like lock my phone up and not touch it until I'm done writing. Or I often try to use my phone and listen to music, and that helps me sort of feel more immersed into the world of my writing. But also, I'm not, because I'm playing music, I'm not necessarily doing anything else on my phone. And yeah, in a way, it's like the internet and all of the like knowledge at my fingertips can be really helpful for inspiration and for, like like listening to music or going on Pinterest and like making these little boards of my characters. But it can also be distracting, and I have to like sort of understand that balance. And it's like, when is this helpful and when is it distracting?
That's great. And do you have rituals or boundaries that help you create your protect your creative time?
Yes, I very often I will not hang out with people until I'm done writing. I try not to like basically it's not that I try not to have fun until I'm done writing, because there are absolutely always exceptions where I write in the evening. But typically my rule for myself is on weekends and during the summer when I'm not, I do a lot of summer programs, so that sort of skews everything. But for example, for days like today, I try to do my work in the morning and the afternoon, and in the evening I'll see my friends. And that really allows me to sort of protect my creative time and allow myself to not, you know, get super distracted during the day and then, oh no, it's the evening and I have to do all of this writing and I have to send a bunch of emails. So yeah, really trying to get the work done before I do anything that's like traditionally considered fun. Though I'm going to be so honest, I love like walking to a little cafe and sitting down and writing. Like that's perfectly fun for me.
And that discipline is something even seasoned writers chase. And you're modeling it beautifully.
Thank you.
And you're a part of new generation of storytellers. How do you think Gen Z voices are changing literature?
Ooh, so I first off, I love Gen Z voices so much. I love reading books written by people in my generation. You see this with every generation, but there's this heightened understanding for like at least when I'm reading. I love reading books that I feel like I can relate to and that I feel like I can see myself as like a part of them. And I really, of course, see that a lot with Gen Z work because I'm also a member of Gen Z. And I think that goes with every generation. But also, it's really cool to see writers in my generation approaching new ideas that previously weren't broached in literature and really exploring all of these different intricacies of the world and really, being themselves in what they write.
Absolutely. And what themes do you feel most drawn to explore in your work? And why?
Ooh, so let's see. I have a whole lot of different themes I approach in my work. Mainly, I have a lot of themes of like, I have a lot of social commentary. I write a lot about what I see happening in the world and the things that I care about. For example, in one of my most recent books, Pontus and Electra to the Depths of the Sea, I talk about the environment and I talk about the ways in which humans bring harm upon the environment, in honestly in ways that are often senseless. And that's something I didn't know the full extent of it until I started writing the book. But as I was writing it, I really realized I was like, okay, I need readers to, close this book and walk away from it realizing that there is a serious difference that needs to be made in the world. And I want them to feel inspired to make a change. And that's really, I think, what influences a lot of my work across many different genres and plots and settings is this need to make a difference and this need to sort of stand up for what you believe in.
Mhm. And there's such a refreshing emotional honesty in your generational writing. It hits different.
Oh, definitely.
And if another teen listening wants to write and publish but feels overwhelmed, what's one piece of real talk you'll give them?
Okay. First things first, I know it is it's not the advice people want to hear, but I do believe that it is good advice. Sit down and just write whatever comes to mind. If you feel like you want to write a book, it doesn't matter if you have a clear idea. Sit down, maybe put some music on, and just write something. Write a word. And then after that, write another word. And what you might realize is the story will start to shape itself. If you can try to move from that space of overthinking the story or like feeling like you have to have the perfect opening line or the perfect idea, if you write anything, even just write about, you could start by writing about your day. You can start about writing this random thing you saw. And what you might realize is it might really start shaping into a story. The other thing is once if you really feel like, yeah, you want to write a book, which you should, my biggest thing for all of my books, and I already said it, is that I write 1,000 words every single day. And it doesn't have to be 1,000. You could write 100 words. You could write 500. You could write more. You could write 2,000. But if you can commit to writing a certain amount of words, then you'll be able to finish the book so much quicker and you'll be able to build this lifelong habit.
Definitely. And what's something you wish someone told you when you first started?
Ooh, I have so many different things I could say to that. Um, Probably advice that I heard really early on, and I'm trying to figure out a way to word this, is make your characters suffer. And I know that sounds crazy, and what I mean by that is your book needs conflict, your book needs action, and your characters need something to overcome. And in writing, I remember, I was like, oh, well, like, I don't know what to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. And you just need to like create conflict in your story because no one wants to read a book where nothing's going on and there's no conflict and there's no stakes. And it can't just be two characters walking around and going shopping and having fun all day. And I remember the more I could add even things that like propel the story forward, that heighten those tensions, the more I felt like I was able to write stronger books that were more engaging.
Mm-hmm. And that's the wisdom of someone who has walked the walk, and you have barely started the journey.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, Shanti, thank you for showing us that age doesn't define talent, dedication does. And to all young dreamers out there, don't wait for permission. Tell your story, take up space. Because, like Shanti, you might just be the author of a new generation's voice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shanti. This is amazing.